want to welcome us all back to the sewer subcommittee with good news. This project has been going on, I'm not sure exactly how long there, about 4 or 5 years. But we are finally at the point where we could award bids. We had some very successful bidding in my mind for a project of this size to get the number of bids that we did all close to the same dollar figure. I don't want to steal Ray's thunder, but that was very good bidding for a project of this size. So would like to turn it over to Ray Jakowski and let him explain the bids that we did receive and the process where we're at.
Excellent. All right. Thank you. Yeah, I also have John Lazzaroni from my office. He's on the call today. John's an engineer that's been working on the project and also the project manager. So he's been instrumental on this project as well through the permitting process, map plan and report process, and ultimately the bidding. So as Ron has indicated, we did go out for bid on the project. It was publicly bid and advertised in the papers, and then we also got a hold of several construction journal companies as well that become the clearinghouse for bid documents for contractors to obtain. Back on September 25th, we also conducted a pre-bid meeting that allowed the contractors to come in, meet with us, ask any questions, but then also, more importantly, be able to visit the site as far as the existing wastewater plant and the area, the route heading to Greenport as well. On October 16th, the county received numerous bids. There were a total of 22 bid sets that actually were picked up from the county. So 22 contractors or agencies had picked up on the project. Of the 22, we had a total of 13 bids that were submitted. So on a project such as this, just to keep in mind, anytime the project goes over $500,000 in value, the project has to be broken up into what are known as prime contracts: general construction, mechanical if it's located inside of a building, electrical, and HVAC. So in our case, since it's infrastructure and wastewater related, we really only had to deal with 2 prime contracts, one being the general construction. Now that general contractor is responsible for all of the pipe work, traffic maintenance and protection, the pump stations and laying the pipe and doing all the trenching, doing all the restoration work, asphalt work, and so forth. And then we also had a separate electrical contract for all of the electrical work. So that electrical contractor is responsible for providing new electrical service to each one of the pump stations, making the final connections as far as the electrical connections for those pump stations and control panels and controls and communications and so forth, as well as demo as well. So there's some demo work for both of those. That being said, Kelly's been kind enough to provide a copy on the screen as far as the bid results. Let's talk to the point of general construction. So general construction, the apparent low bidder was William Keller and Sons Construction Corp. with a total bid amount of $4.4 million for the entire project. That's well within budget for the entire project. And we're happy. We've actually dealt with them in the past. They've been pretty successful on other projects that we've worked with them on, specifically in Greenport on waterline projects, but we've also been involved with them on sewer line projects. They're well versed in this type of work. We're very happy with the bid results that we received, not only from them as the low bid, but when we take a look at the bidders as a whole for the group for general construction, in particular, the low bid and the second low bid. So low bid came in at 4.4. The second lowest bidder came in at 4.7. So that's roughly $323,000 difference on a $4 million contract, which is within 7%. And then when we look at the lowest four, that's a range of about $440,000 between the lowest four and about a 10% spread. So when we're looking at the bids, obviously you always have a high and a low, but then you want to look at the spread as well, because you want to make sure the contractors are actually all bidding on the same project, that they're all looking at the same documents in a similar manner, and that they're providing competitive pricing. So based on this information, it is competitive. It was a nice grouping that we received. And so we've been in contact with Keller and Sons. They've provided the required documentation that EFC requires as far as WBE, so the Women Minority Business and Women and Minority Business Owner Participation. They've provided for those forms. And so we feel comfortable with awarding the general construction project and contract to Keller and Sons. The second contract was for the electrical work. And similarly, well within budget, CDE Electric was the apparent low bidder on that at $254,300. Again, looking at the grouping, a fairly good grouping in there as far as low bidders and others. A little more of a range overall, but still happy with the bids that were received. And we've also, again, are familiar with CD Electric. They're capable of providing it. They still owe us a little information to satisfy EFC as far as the final paperwork, which will all need to be done prior to signing of contract. But for the purposes of awarding, we feel comfortable with awarding them the contract, and the final paperwork will be forthcoming prior to contract signing. Looking at the project as a whole, so when we first put the project together many years ago, as Ron had alluded to, we had estimated a construction. So we had, if you remember when we were putting that project together, we had what were considered to be hard construction costs. So then again, those are contract costs. We then also provided for contingencies. Again, because we weren't in the design phase, so we wanted to provide for unseen or unanticipated conditions and built those into the bidding process. And then we also had soft costs associated with engineering fees, inspection fees, construction admin fees, legal fees, and then also the appraisals that were done as well. But when we look at the hard costs, so we do an apples to apples comparison, we had estimated the hard construction cost to be roughly 6.6 million. And we came in with bids at 4.6. So well within the budget as far as the overall construction. So we're really happy with respect to that. So again, based on that information, we do have some contingencies still built into the contracts. We continue to feel comfortable with those. And we would recommend awarding the low bid to Keller and Sons for the general construction for contract 17-001 GC, and then CDE Electric contract number 17-001 EC for the electrical construction. Please keep in mind, we're still going, even though we're going through the awarding process, there'll have to be a formal resolution that'll be drawn up for the full board. But then we'll also have to get a final acceptance from Environmental Facilities Corporation that all of their requirements are are met prior to actually signing the contracts, which is standard procedure when we're dealing with an outside funding source such as Environmental Facilities Corp.
So Ray, what would your expectation be of moving this project forward to actually groundbreaking?
Contractors have indicated that they're ready to move forward. So when we first put together the construction schedule for the project, we had always anticipated that the project as a whole would run consecutively over a 12-month period. So we always knew that we were going to be working through at least one winter. That being said, we have had a very brief discussion with the general contractor, which would be most affected by weather. And he's indicated that he's ready to move forward. And he would like to mobilize, again, once contracts are signed, and they want to start working right away. Right. I also want to back up a moment just regarding savings. In looking at our original estimate, we believe that one of the greatest cost savings that occurred on this particular project had to do with the acquisition of the easements. So when we first put our project together, we were considering a bit of worst case scenario, having to provide construction within the Route 66 travel way and shoulder in order to install the pipeline that heads from the Commerce Park down to the town of Greenport wastewater plant. Once we were able to obtain those easements, which I know, again, was a big concern on the county as far as obtaining those, we were able to limit the work and install that pipeline, design the pipeline, be able to install that pipeline completely within the shoulder in the majority of the cases. And that's resulted in a tremendous cost savings because, number one, by placing that pipeline, being able to place that pipeline in the shoulder and off the shoulder area, number one, the contractor's productivity actually increases. So they're actually able to install more pipe on any given day. The amount of manpower that's required for traffic protection or traffic safety, traffic protection, that's reduced. And also one of the biggest items is New York State DOT within the last 5 years has made it a requirement that anytime you intrude upon what's known as the fog line. So we have the yellow line, if you would, which is the divider, center divider, if you would. Then you have the fog line, which is the white line sitting next to the shoulder. Okay, that's known in DOT terms as the fog line. Anytime you intrude upon that fog line, if you were to go into the lane, DOT requires that you pave that entire lane in its width. And that's what we had anticipated when we were doing our work as far as our initial design cost. Since we were able to move that pipeline off into the shoulder, we were able to eliminate much of that. And obviously these bids reflect that as well. We weren't able to eliminate it in its entirety, but in the majority of the cases, we're no longer, intruding upon that travel lane.
Hey, Ray.
So, Ray, this has significant changes with EFC. Because the total project, when we sent in the application, was at 9.2 million, which would include all the soft costs and everything like that. By this project coming in significantly cheaper, it's going to lower the amount that we need to borrow from the EFC. It's going to lower our principal, because there'd be no interest. And eventually, off the top of my head here, the user is going to be paying less than they're probably paying now.
Yeah, I was going to say, absolutely. Yeah. So you're absolutely correct. So please keep in mind, we were awarded a significant amount of money. I believe it was roughly 2.3 million from EFC initially. That will be adjusted based on the final contract amounts. So that will be adjusted accordingly because it's based on percentage. But Ron, you are absolutely correct. Remember when we were doing comparison, even at that 9 million, when we were not looking at we were looking to finance it entirely by the county and not even taking into consideration EFC. Over a 30-year period, we were at a break even, building a new plant versus constructing. Now with these numbers, in addition to the EFC financing, it's a huge benefit to the users of the district, no question.
I was going to ask Ron of that in the future here. In a short time, we should be able to kind of recalculate those numbers and come back with a rate for the users eventually here.
You asking me, Ron?
Yes, to your point of the fact that now that we've got some construction costs that we could factor in there, even if you, throw some contingency in there, but we could come back and generate a new number of what we feel the users are going to pay as a rate.
Yes, I can do that.
Thank you.
And back to Ray, when can we actually set up a meeting with EFC, all right, to finalize these numbers? And we actually, I'd like to start drawing down some of the cash I put out paying the soft costs to you guys, like over 60,000. That's got to be relatively quickly now that we got everything going on this project like this and the bids are in.
That's correct. We're actually waiting. We've provided final documentation to EFC as far as engineer's certificate, owner's certificate of construction documents and so forth. We've finalized all the technical review. We're just waiting for the final approval from EFC. That could be any day now, literally. Once that's done, then number one, they would provide final approval to let us go to construction. And at that point, yes, Ron, we would, go ahead and actually have a meeting with them to discuss the process for drawdown.
What do you feel the overall number is going to be, Ray, all said and done? That 6.6 you were talking about, that was just construction phase size, right?
Yeah, I believe in all, you're probably going to be closer towards maybe 6 million.
With soft costs and everything?
Yeah, that was soft costs and everything. I mean, by all means, I can run through those. My apologies, I don't have that number with me, but by all means, I can, run through that exercise and provide an update to the committee.
We had for construction costs, we had 6.6. Was that correct in the
For the
estimate?
construction cost, correct.
And did that include the electrical side rate too?
Yes, it did.
Okay.
And again, one of the reasons I have to go back is because they're, in addition to the overall project, as Ron had pointed out, as far as that 9 million
Yeah.
number, there were soft costs, but then there were closing costs as well. So I've got to go back and I've got to go back and kind of resurrect those numbers in order to come up with a final figure. But we'll work on getting that together.
Good.
But I bet PJ'd be glad if we could reimburse him some of the cash he's laid out, right, PJ?
I'm sitting here thinking about that right now. Hey, Ray, what
Put on that, son.
do you know how much, being as the reduced bids have come in, how much will EFC reduce their contribution? Any idea?
Yeah, my recollection is the maximum amount awarded was a third of the overall construction, or my apologies, a third of the overall project costs. But what we have to do is we actually have to, there were 2 grants. If you remember, there was actually 2 grants that were received, or 2 forms of financing, EFC, and then there was an additional 1.5 million that were received as well. So we actually have to take the overall project number. So those are all the final costs. We have to back out the 1.5, and then EFC would fund up to 1/3 of that cost that's left over.
Okay.
I thought it was just 25%, right? Is it a third? I thought it was just.
Oh, I'm
25.
sorry. My apologies. No, I'm sorry, Ron. You're correct. It was a quarter. I'm sorry. It was
They're
25.
going to give us a quarter, 25% of it up front, and then finance the balance at 0% interest.
Correct.
Right.
Yep. So yeah, within the next week or so, I'll try, by all means, I'll try to have that information together before the full board meeting, because I'm sure there'll be more questions and everyone would like to have those type of answers to see where we stand. So I'll see if I can get together with the EFC and get those numbers together.
Are we going to bring these resolutions to finance then this month?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, my intention was we drafted this into a resolution. I didn't know if Rob might need to add some legal language to this. Kelly and I kind of worked on this today. Rob said it looked good, but I didn't know, just to cover all the EFC requirements. There might be a couple other paragraphs that need to go in here, but yes, I would like the committee to recommend this tonight and go through Public Works and send it on its way to the board so that Ray can get the project underway, if the committee is okay with that. But speaking of which, any committee members have questions for Ray on this project and process?
Ray, these numbers include the generators, right? All that backup stuff, everything that we talked about.
That is correct. Yes, it does.
Okay.
Yes, it does. One of the things we are going to look at, it's all the generators for the new facilities. There is one existing pump station that does not have a generator currently, and it's still part of the overall collection. So one of the things we may do is obviously think about going back and seeing about adding a generator to that location, since there's money available, obviously.
And with the different location, that the way we reset the pipe a little closer to the road, am I correct saying that?
Actually, in the shoulder of the road, so it's actually
Shoulder road.
outside of the pavement area.
Okay. Does that impact us from ever wanting to connect in? Anyone else wanting to connect into that system? Does that change that ability?
No, it does not. No, it does not. It actually, in those instances where the property happens to be on the same side of the road as the pipeline, it makes
Right.
it actually easier for that potential.
Okay.
Yeah. So it doesn't impact that in any way.
Good. Okay.
Again, obviously keeping in mind that any future user would still have to come back to the county,
Right.
as whether it's an expansion of the district or an extension of the district and so forth. So they'd have to deal with the county, and they'd have to, per the agreement, they'd have to get approval from Town of Greenport as well.
Correct. Okay. Are we pretty much done with all the land that we were taking? Is that pretty much straightened out yet, or is that still some areas still in litigation on some of the eminent domain stuff?
All of the eminent domain items, unless, I think Rob's on the phone, but unless Rob corrects me otherwise, as far as the eminent domain proceedings, those have all been completed. My understanding is that all of those have been filed. We actually just received I actually received today, Rob, the sign off and the legal documents as far as the easement from the Dutch Village Mobile Home Park. So we now have that. And I think the last agreement would be through National Grid going underneath the power line area. So I think that's the only last one that remains.
Yeah, that's correct. We're all good on the easements and the takings with Ray's mentionings there that we just need to finalize with National Grid.
Okay. Is the demo in there also in this particular price for the old plant?
Yes, it is. Correct. And the way we've left the demo is that if there's the owner has the first refusal to anything within that facility. So for instance, not that there's much, but there is an existing generator there. So again, if the county has the ability or need for a generator in another location, it does need some work, no question, but it is available. It did not suit our needs for our pumps, but it is available in case the county needs it for another location and is interested into it. But yes, it does include the demo of the existing wastewater facility. And that would come obviously at the tail end of the project once the new force main and pump stations are up and operational. But that would be one of the last things that is done. But that is included.
We may be able to use that generator, Ron.
Yeah, we'll take a look.
Well, that's good news, Ray.
Good. Yeah, very good. We were, quite honestly, in, everything that we're all dealing with today, we've seen numbers all over the place. So, we were a little concerned based on the amount of time that had, lapsed between when we first put our estimates together till now, and construction numbers because of availability of materials and so forth. The construction numbers have been all over the place. We've been getting high numbers, low numbers. Some of them don't make sense. But again, in this case, in our mind, the biggest savings really was, and again, I know, I want to stress that because I know that there were supervisors that were hesitant to go through the eminent domain process. And obviously, the county doesn't like to use that process unless it's absolutely necessary. But in this case, for just obtaining a few feet along the frontage of somebody's property, and that's the majority of the easements that were received and where the eminent domain process, took place, it really saved the county a tremendous amount of money.
Okay. And this does include also part of that map is going out to the airport, correct?
Yes, it does. Correct. Yep.
Okay.
So Kelly has before us a resolution that if somebody would like to make a motion to send that on to Public Works. And
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hold on. Jean isn't on this committee.
Oh,
It's Ron, Matt, Kathy Eldridge, and Wendy Buzzy. So either, yeah, there you go. Sorry, Jean.
I didn't realize it was Jeannie.
Yeah.
well, it's been nice being here with all of you.
Thank you for joining us.
All right, so you have a motion and a second, Ron.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much, and thank you, Ray. This has been a good project. I know it's been a long time, but I'm very, very pleased to see a grouping of bids like that at a $5 million project to come in that tight in bidding is really pretty good. So.
Yeah, again, to me, we're really happy because it means everybody's interpreting our drawings and our specifications the same way. So yeah, we're excited to see the project gain traction, obviously, and the fact of getting it to construction as well. So we're looking forward to moving forward on it.
Saving money too.
Yeah. Most of all.
That's right. All right,
Thank you
anybody
all.
else have anything for the sewer subcommittee? Not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second,
I'll second.
thanks, Matt. All right.
All right, see you all at Public Works.